share it out to folks that don't have an opportunity to join us at the moment. So bear with me as I click record. I'm going to bring up my slides.
Yeah, just a quick note as well. If you don't want to see all the faces and names on the screen, just hit speaker view on the top right-hand corner of your screen, and that will only show the speaker that's talking. And when we get to our panelists, they'll be sharing their slide decks, so that would be the best way to view this. Thank you.
Excellent. And I'm hoping at the moment everybody is seeing my intro slide. Can we just confirm in the chat you guys are seeing my intro slide? Perfect. Excellent. So thank you for everyone for joining once again. We are here at BNinjas on our first inventory management for e-commerce panel. I am Wayne Richard. I am Director of Global Operations here at BNinjas, our resident e-commerce expert. We have joining us today Andrew G. from Dhiren Systems. We have Dhiren from Cloudscape Technologies, and also Jill from Inventory Planner. I think we probably have a panel with the most difficult last names to pronounce. So I will let each one of you, rather than butchering them myself, share your last name as we get to each one of you guys later in the conversations. So I have the first poll question for everyone. How much time are you currently spending on managing inventory in your business? Again, you can use the polls section to go ahead and share your results with us today. I'll give a few minutes while folks are joining. Also in the chat, share with us, where are you joining us from? If you can share your location, we'd be interested in seeing where we have an opportunity to connect with you all today. So go ahead, share in the chat where you're from, and also response to our first poll question.
Wayne, you'll need to actually start the poll so it appears on everyone's screen.
Launch polling.
Yep, now we've got it.
Excellent. We'll give a few moments for folks to continue to share. We're seeing a race at right now 5 to 10 hours, 10 to 20. It's closing in. Excellent. So it looks like we have folks spending now 44% of you say 0 to 5 hours on a monthly basis managing inventory, 33% 5 to 10 hours, and then 22% 10 to 20 hours. Excellent. We'll leave this open as we continue to chat. Again, we're BNinjas. We help 6- and 7-figure e-commerce businesses with their monthly recurring bookkeeping, financial reporting, zero education and setup, as well as provide profit-first coaching to e-commerce entrepreneurs. And in addition to the historical view of your numbers, we also share insights and advisory and help you pull together an understanding of your numbers through cash flow forecast and planning. Stick around to the end of the event. We have some free gifts, not just from ourselves at BNinjas, but also from our panelists. So we want to make sure that you get a hand on those at the end, so we'll be sharing. Use the chat function, as I shared in the intro, to pose questions. I have our community manager, Amp, on as well. He will keep me honest and make sure that we're covering all questions that are asked, rather than having folks jump in. Please keep your lines muted as our presenters run through their presentations, and then we'll capture questions once again at the end. Our first panelist, meet Andrew G., Business Development Manager at Dhiren Systems, focusing on inventory management for e-commerce, as well as heavily involved in the strategic thinking, problem solving that B2B channel partners face. Andrew is based out of Sydney, Australia. Topic will be, when do I need inventory software and what should it do? So I'm going to stop my sharing. And again, if now, Andrew, you can bring up your sharing.
I think you might just need to give me permission to be able to share my screen.
All righty.
And, I'll get started.
Bear with me, guys. So I've stopped sharing, and Andrew, we able to share your session now?
I think I'm still labeled as a participant. So host is disabled participant screen sharing.
Here we are.
Excellent. I'll start on that. So let me know if you guys can see my screen.
Absolutely.
And I'll get started on this. So thank you for that really warm introduction, Wayne, and thanks for all the other participants for being able to join us and make this happen, and all the guys. So really appreciate it. So I'll just quickly jump into it. I'm from Dhiren. I'm the channel manager, so I work with a variety of advisors to accountants to inventory specialists, firms, and also some directly also work with clients as well. So I'll quickly just get into some of the stats from our end. You know, we have live subscriptions now in 78 countries, and we're dealing with more than 77,000 businesses globally that do inventory management. So pretty much stock-based businesses. And kind of what we found that over a course of a month, if you really take into consideration what involves managing inventory, not just purchasing, but we can find anywhere between, like, people do spend 14 to 21 hours, businesses between $1 to $5 million US dollar revenue, do spend anything between 14 to 21 hours per month managing inventory. So that's even pulling out reports, finding what's really happening, managing their purchase orders. So that's procurement, receiving, doing all the bills, managing sales orders. So that's everything from getting the sales order into the system, fulfilling that order, pick, pack, and ship till it leaves. That's all part of those calculations as well. And product sourcing. So launching new products, if that's happening, it could be up to 20 hours to 30 odd hours that they could be spending. So inventory management, actually, when you actually break it down, and that's something I love about inventory management, is the fact that you can calculate exactly how many hours you're spending per month on managing your business, a stock-based business. And the biggest frustration that builds up is that it's one of the biggest barriers to growth. So your ability to scale because of this becomes kind of limited a little bit, because of how streamlined your inventory management is. And when we spoke about frustrations, we figured that about 57% biggest frustration is lost time and productivity, not being able to fulfill orders quick enough, not being able to spending hours trying to do reordering and figuring out what they need to reorder, and upset customers. So these could be things from missed picks, so accidentally sending out the wrong stock, or sending more than what you need to, so you're losing stock, and also doesn't show stock outs, potentially selling more than what you have and selling yourself into a negative, taking longer than expected to get stock in, and not having a great, I guess, overview of that information, causing a lot of these frustrations and causing a lot of the barriers to entry. Now, I can go a lot deeper into that, but we'll just leave it there for now. And what I want to just quickly cover is that most businesses today, just because of ability to technology or just the way the globe is changing and evolving and new challenges coming up, we're seeing more and more businesses adopt the hybrid supply chain, which is the complexity. And by a hybrid supply chain, what I mean is that people might do some wholesale. So a business that was usually purely e-commerce might do wholesale, or might open up a boutique store or start putting themselves into retail spaces. E-commerce, so adopting e-commerce. So if you're a wholesale beforehand or just had retail, moving to e-commerce, utilizing marketplaces. And of course, there's always going to be this phone, email for wholesalers. And a hybrid supply chain pretty much means that you have all these different places where you're selling your product and have the opportunity to sell your product. And what Dhiren does, it allows you to manage all those sales orders in one simple location, with a warehouse management software application as well to manage your pick, pack, and ship, and your fulfillment. So your complete fulfillment cycle, your shipping, and you're going to book that in with the carriers and so forth, and managing all your inventories, and have those availabilities and live quantity figures at all times published across the all boards. So you'll have, I guess, one central place that speaks to everywhere. So you don't have multiple different chains or links in the chain that could potentially cause too many errors, or having to go into too many different platforms to get that true information that you need. And also manage all your accounting, purchase orders, so receiving stock in. If you're contract manufacturing, doing any type of manufacturing, bundling, value adding to the product, you can manage that all in one situation, give it to your suppliers, and also be able to receive in. So as you can see, the web can get complex, and we're seeing more and more businesses adopt this. Even if it is just e-commerce and they do some wholesale, or they do e-commerce marketplaces, and they might just supply that local store, but it is getting more and more complex, just the nature of the current business environment that we're in. So now I'm going to talk about digital transformation. So if you're having those frustrations, or you're looking to grow and scale, thinking about inventory management is not, as Wayne was saying, sometimes is as simply as just plugging in an app, so you can count what came in, what went out. But you got to think about it as more of transforming, re-engineering your processes in the back end. So, you got to take into considerations things like, how's it going to work with my accounting software? How's it going to work with my sales channels? How is it going to work with my warehouse or contract manufacturer, or my third-party logistics company? How's it going to work with my freight provider? These are all the questions that you should be asking. So when you're looking at putting an inventory system in place, you should be really thinking about digital transformation and thinking outside the scope of just what am I doing manually and how do I digitize it, but more about how can I do things more efficiently? How can I do things that might be more aligned with accounting standards, more aligned with inventory standards, so I'm getting true data out of my system, and that way I can make better, quicker decisions to grow and scale. So obviously the KISS principle, keep it simple, is always can be adopted during this time. So instead of bolting on tens of different little apps, think about 2 or 3 core apps that you want to kind of work with to make it all happen. They can do a lot. So you're having a nice little tech stack there. And also putting these systems in place is going to also allow you to do more with the number of people that you already have, and don't need to recreate the wheel. So if a system already follows international standards, then it's better sometimes to see if that standard fits your business as well. Another thing is work efficiency, more efficient and smarter. Again, as I was saying, you can track and quantify how much time you're spending on inventory management. How long is it taking you to manage a sales order? How long is it taking you to reorder, to be able to make those reordering decisions? And how long is it taking you to decide when you should order? There are great apps that work with Dhiren as well, which one of the panelists will discuss. They can really create a lot of efficiency and a lot of value in that space. So you're reducing overstocking. So you're not sitting on stock that, is pretty much money tied up. That could be cash in your bank to take on new investments, to bring on a new range, to do that marketing, to expand into that new sales channel. And you're also reducing stock outs, really, like not having stock in. So if something is selling out quickly, you should be able to see when you're going to be running out of that stock, and also when you should be ordered. So you're getting it in time, just in time to be able to keep fulfilling orders. And then scaling. So this is something that I keep bringing up, but moving away from Google spreadsheets, moving away from 10, 20 different platforms to get your inventory figures. So really looking at how can I scale? How can I grow? How can I do more with the same resources I have, with the same warehouse, with the same amount of people? What's my most time consuming tasks, and how can I automate them? If I'm spending 3 hours a week generating reports. Well, can I do that with a click of a button? Potentially, yes, you could. And again, I want to bring back the emphasis on how important it is to have a tech stack in place. Very important. So I quickly just go through, and I know I've got about a minute here. So I'm going to go to back one of our case studies called Love Tea. Really great company. You can look them up. They're pretty much an organic tea company. Some of their key challenges, and I'm going to run through this really quickly, is they had get rid of an ancient and they had a legacy software. They want to gain knowledge of their customers' buying habits, and most importantly, they want to scale their operations. And some of the key solutions was integration to multiple locations, so 3PLs, additional assembly module to be able to bundle and kit, and to have accurate data, access to that accurate data. And they were able to achieve this. So some of the key results was they saved about 4 hours a day in total from that whole business operation, about 20 hours a week of payroll hours saved. But they didn't let go of those stuff. They just was able to do more and take on more. And refresh ability to focus on doing what the company does best. So there was a lot more that the business owner wasn't working in the business about working on the business, and dramatically streamlining their livestock figures and on-hand figures, so actually knew exactly what they had sitting on their warehouse floors, what was available, what was on order. Everything was available with a click of a finger with actual costing. So with that being said, and I'm not rushed through a lot. So again, it all comes back to knowing your why and how can you get to that. So I'll give it back to, hand it over to Wayne from there, and I'll stop sharing my screen. And I think that was my 10 minutes and so.
Excellent. So as Andrew mentioned, he shared the why. We're going to bring up Dhiren now. I know you don't want to hear a long-winded introduction from me, so I will just very quickly introduce Dhiren. Dhiren is the founder of Cloudscape Technologies. He is an integrator, and he will help us understand how to choose the right inventory software. Dhiren, I will hand over sharing to you.
Thank you so much, Wayne. And again, thank you so much for the lovely introduction, and great to be here. I'm quickly going to share my screen, and hopefully this works. You guys can all see my screen, yes? Yeah, I see some thumbs up. So let me just quickly go back to the start of the deck. And as you mentioned, Wayne, my name is Dhiren. I'm the founder and managing director at Cloudscape. And what we do is we work with e-commerce businesses and inventory businesses, and we help them implement inventory management solutions. And like I mentioned in my intro, we're on a mission really to help business owners use a full 100% of their software. I think a lot of business owners these days have so much choice and so much option that they sometimes may not be leveraging the full potential. A quick snapshot of my senior leadership team. We've got, and just to put a sort of a face behind the team, we've got people in projects, we've got people in sales, and we've got people in support, because those are the three key things that we do. A quick snapshot of the brands. We work with some of the largest luxury brands in the world in terms of inventory management, and also digitally native e-commerce brands. And as Wayne mentioned, we are certified partners with different systems from around the world. And therein lies a lot of advantage when we speak to a customer, because we know how they can choose, how we help them choose an inventory management solution. And Andrew already touched upon this, Wayne's already touched upon this, and it's really interesting to see the poll that you guys just had on screen. It noted in the research that 11.7%, almost 12% of an annual revenue for an e-commerce business is lost either due to out of stocks, overstocks, or even preventable returns. 50% of businesses do not track their inventory or use a management system. They use Excel and pen and paper. And of six-figure e-commerce businesses, about 25% use an inventory management system. And the last thing is, about 50% of time in a month is spent in managing inventory, purchasing, order management, and that's a lot of time. I think that's really the why that a business owner, an e-commerce business owner, or an inventory business owner needs to be looking into investing in an inventory management system. Now, it's a big decision. It's not as simple as buying an app store. And so what we've done is we've put together something that we call the 5C principle. The 5C principle talks about the 5 C's that any business owner should keep in mind when they're looking to purchase a system. And I'm going to go through them in as quickly as I can. The first one And you'll notice that I've put cost at the far bottom, and you'll see why by the end of this presentation. And I'll also have a quick case study to share with you. The first one is commitment. And the commitment is not commitment to any other thing, but commitment to knowing what is it that you want. So we work with a lot of business owners who come to us and say, we need an inventory management system. And when we ask for a requirements document or some sort of needs analysis, they usually start to blank out and they start writing off things after in their head. And that can be a very dangerous place to start off from. So one of the key things that I recommend and advise to anybody who's looking to buy an inventory management software is have a requirements document, a document that has basically what you want in a simple document that you can share. It's one of the key things, and you're going to see this pattern repeat itself throughout this presentation. I know a lot of business owners may be thinking that it needs to be a fancy document. It needs to be a document that has lots of frills and numbers. It doesn't actually. It needs to be as simple as it can. And I'm going to give you some questions that you can ask yourselves when you're putting that document together in the next slide. But before we do that, the second point that I wanted to throw out there in terms of commitment is to really understand your current needs versus near-term needs and then long-term needs. I think a lot of business owners have what we call the shiny object syndrome, and I'm guilty of that. When I see a new software, I just go gaga Google over all the latest features in there. But I think the key here I want to highlight is know what I need today and what I can buy that is going to solve my problem today. So there's the two key things in there. One is knowing your current business workflows, like Andrew mentioned already. You have to revamp your business process, but you already do some things in a certain way, and the software should be able to map that for you. Also, then again, Andrew mentioned in terms of automation, helping you save time. Know what is it that you want today as opposed to what you want 2 years from now. And the questions that I mentioned, these are some important questions that we ask every business owner when we meet them. And there are some key points in here, and that will help you select the right system, because not all systems are equal. So what kind of products do you carry? Are they variant products? Are they composite products? Are they all unique? There's no size and color. Are there any special kind of products that you carry? Are they serialized? Do they have batch tracking? Because this will also then predicate what kind of system you're going to buy. So having all of these questions answered can give you a very simple requirements document that you can then give to your vendor or someone like us to say, this is what I need today. Tell me what system works. Or even if you're doing this by yourself, it gives you a great starting point. I'm going to leave this on for a couple more seconds. There's a couple ones in here that I think are very, very important. For example, is your warehouse cluttered, or are there aisles that are easy to navigate? This again is a very sort of a broad question, because this will tell you what kind of warehouse management system you need together with your inventory management system. And Dhiren is a really good example because it can do a lot of this already: multi-bin, sorting, tracking. How do you manage your accounting? Do you need a system that has accounting integrated already? Are you doing it outside of your inventory management system? And what sort of integrations do you need in the near future or now? Second one that I want to talk about is capabilities. Is this software designed for my kind of business? Can you show me examples of, and this is you talking to a vendor or a partner like us to say, can you show me examples of other clients that use this software that are similar to my business? And the other thing that I tell all business owners is find a software that does about 90% of what you need. There's no perfect system in the world, especially cloud-based SaaS offerings. They're always going to have something missing. And that's just, like we said, there's no perfect house, there's no perfect marriage, there's no perfect system. A system that can do 90% of what you're going to want to do is perfect, and you can always build from there. And the final thing is, what kind of scalability options can you find in this system? So that'd be a good point to talk about. Like, again, Andrew mentioned automation, accounting, B2B portals, e-commerce integrations, marketplace integrations with Amazon, and so on and so forth. The third C is customization. Again, I keep stressing this is, what do I need today? And use your requirements document as that blueprint to say, what do I need today from this system? And look for those particular features in that system. Needs versus wants is a really, really key thing that I want to highlight here. When I speak to a business owner, business owners generally get carried away with saying, I want this and I want that. Most of times, more often than not, actually they don't need that. They want that. And therein where is that's a paradox. When you start to getting into a system where you want things, you may end up either over budgeting or spending too much on a system that you don't possibly need right now. I've the other thing that I want to highlight inside customization, one of the key things that we see a lot of business owners struggle with is reporting. So usually I always ask for what kind of reports does a business owner want to see? And that's a great question that you can ask, again, yourself, and make a list in your requirements document. What kind of reporting do I want to see? What kind of customization do I want in these reports? And can the software do that? That's the next thing is care. And care is also very important, because when you're buying a system, you're not buying just the system, you're buying the brand. And what I mean by that is, in today's day and age, we've got many, many systems. We've got Deer systems, we've got Unleashed, we've got TradeCalc. These are all phenomenal systems. But it's important to know what their niche is. It's important to know what kind of support they're going to give you. And it's important to know where their roadmap is, because each system does something very well. And it's great to know what that is so that you can follow with that brand rather than buying just an app. The last thing I want to talk quickly about is cost. I always believe in this, that it takes money to make money. And usually when we speak to business owners, the first question they talk about when we talk about inventory management systems, what is it going to cost me? And cost is a very complex decision, because cost is not just the cost of the software, but also what you're going to get in return. So how can it help you, give you return on investment? And there are three things that I wanted to highlight here. A good inventory management system can do three things for you. It can either increase revenue, it can either reduce cost, or it can help you avoid cost. Most of the times, I find that a lot of business owners have multiple people doing paper-based things and paper-based workflows. A good system can avoid all of that cost. Either it's someone transcribing information from one system to another, or putting information from your inventory Excel sheet to your accounting Excel sheet. A lot of that can be saved if you invest in the right software. So cost generally is not to be just looked at the sticker price and said, oh, that's an expensive system. I would ask to see if they can help you either do any of these three things, which is revenue enhancement, cost reduction, and cost avoidance. A quick case study from our end. We work with Delta One, which is a very big, almost cult-like brand in Hong Kong. If anybody knows, their jewelry is just phenomenal. We worked with them about 2 months ago, and we helped them. They came to us with a very complex set of needs, and we did the exact same process that I've highlighted for you here. We started with the requirements document. And they have products that are unique. They don't have any variants. They had to have an e-commerce integration, they had to have an accounting integration, and they had to have a retail POS. All of these requirements really started to give us a blueprint for what we could recommend to them. And we ended up giving them a very complex tech stack, as Andrew mentioned, that is now working for them phenomenally. And they've seen a 45% reduction in their costs in terms of people and time. So I just wanted to give that to you guys quickly. And I know I'm just a little over time. Back to you, Andrew. I'm going to stop here and then we'll get back to this later. So back to you.
Excellent, Dhiren. Thank you for sharing. So we've had now an opportunity to hear why inventory management is important in leveraging cloud tools. We've now understood how to go about selecting a system in the 5 C's from Dhiren. I'd like to now introduce Jill. Jill has spent, interestingly enough, 6 years as an entrepreneur and 3 as an inventory planner customer, and now supports e-commerce sellers in making smart purchasing decisions. Jill's going to share with us a bit about inventory planning and forecasting. So Jill, I will stop sharing and allow for you now to pull up your slide deck for us. Welcome, Jill.
All right, perfect. Thanks so much. So yes, as you mentioned, I was an entrepreneur and I started a business and then took over an existing brand and sold on e-commerce for 4 years doing that. And let me switch my screens here, hold on. Yeah, so I work on the inventory planner team now because our inventory management situation was a mess. It was bad in all the wrong ways. Basically what we were doing, here's my dog. I was a professional crazy dog lady running a dog supply store. Long story short, we were we didn't have good transparency into what was going on with our business, with our inventory. We were guessing about what to order. So we were really overstocked on things we didn't need. We were understocked and underpriced on our most important items. So you can guess what the cash flow situation looked like. It was really bad. It was going in a bad direction. So we started using demand planning, demand forecasting to better manage our inventory situation. And I'll kind of get to how that worked out. But some things to keep in mind as you're thinking about, okay, how do I handle demand planning? I think both Andrew and Dhiren have set this up really nicely in thinking about what's the cost value of your time in managing this. A lot of people are managing forecasting and demand planning on spreadsheets before they come to a system like Inventory Planner. And if you're just getting started, if your catalog's small enough, that's a decent solution to manage your demand planning that way. There gets to a point where you're scaling, where you're spending a lot of time, you're spending a lot of energy compiling data, bringing it all together, and not being all that accurate. So when I talk about demand planning, I'm looking at how do we look at past customer behavior in order to predict what's going to happen in the future. So the best indicator of what happens in the future is how people actually behaved in the past. Where did they spend their money? And what we're going to do is really try to optimize our stock so that we have what our customers want, when they want it, and where they want it. So Andrew walked through, if we're selling on all these different channels, say we have some brick and mortar stores, we're selling on a marketplace over here, we're selling on our own site over here. We need to have that inventory coordinated so it's in the right place. It could be a physical location, maybe East Coast, West Coast warehouse. So all of that's optimizing, make sure we have it where they want it, when they want it. And so just a few keys to think about with your forecasting accuracy. And this can apply both if you're handling this with a spreadsheet, if you're upgrading to a software system that is handling demand planning. These are really important things to keep in mind so that you're really getting your inventory optimized, you're making the most of your profitability, and you're not tying up your cash where you don't want it to be, as Dhiren mentioned. So one of the keys that we're thinking about when figuring, what is the demand of our products? So we're not just looking at what is our rate of sales, not an average rate of sales, but we're looking at when we're in stock, how much do people purchase? Because that is the best indicator. If we were out of stock half the month, then people couldn't buy those items. So that you can see how that would really change the calculation if we go from 30 units sold in a month, but we were out of stock half the month. That doubles our sales velocity to only consider those days in stock. So this can be a tricky thing to do manually, but if you have those high priority items and you're doing this, with a spreadsheet, hone in on your highest priority items and really consider when you're in stock and out of stock on these items. When you get to the software side of things, this should be something that the software is taking into consideration for you. So that's going to be a huge time savings and an increase in accuracy on that side of things. Another thing to think about is considering different forecasting methods. So what I mean by this is it's very common in your product catalog that you might have some things that sell consistently year-round, they're non-seasonal, and then you have some other items that might peak around a holiday, maybe around fourth quarter. You really see a spike on this. So you need to ramp up on your inventory, make sure you're stocked up for that time of year so that you can make the most of more customers coming to your site or coming to your marketplace and buying those items. So consider, how are we fine tuning? Again, this goes back to that first principle that I mentioned in terms of thinking about what is the appropriate past behavior that we're looking at to predict what's happening in the future. So if we're looking at a seasonal item, I want to look at what happened last month. I want to look at what happened the same time last year. So think about what is the applicable time frame that really can help us to predict that future behavior. And then just to the point of selling at different locations on different marketplaces, each of those sales channels, each of those locations has its own personality. of sales. So if something sells at a certain rate online, it may not sell at the same rate offline. So this definitely happened in the store that I was running, where we're mostly online, had been online for 20 years. We opened up a retail store, and we saw category performance turn totally upside down. Things that barely sold online were our most popular products offline in store. So take a look at your forecasting per location. They've got their own personality, their own rate of sales, and you need to keep in mind, you know, how do we plan for the demand at each of these locations and really hone in for better accuracy. So just a quick look at some things to additionally keep in mind. So this is a look at Inventory Planner. And there's a lot of data that I think you can get into when you're onboarding with a new software system, whether that's an inventory management system, a new accounting platform, or a demand planning system like ours. So, you know, you can get into data overwhelm. So a few metrics to think about are, what is either the retail value or even better, the profit that we're going to see out of the units we're going to order from our supplier. So basically, what's going to be my return on investment if I buy this inventory? You know, what are we going to get out of it profit-wise if we do spend that money on the inventory? That we're trying to keep that in mind and make that happen as fast as possible, right? Because we want to turn over that stock as quickly as possible, get the stock turn as high as possible. The first order of business typically is making sure that we're not out of stock on those key items, we're not missing out on revenue. Then the second item will be overstock. As Dhiren mentioned, that's cash sitting on your warehouse shelves. Do not neglect it. In my opinion, I think you need to be aggressive about getting it out of your warehouse. You can see on this screenshot, we've identified that these items are overstocked. They're going to last 18 months, which is way longer than we need. That's cash tied up that you could spend elsewhere in your business that's going to give you that return on investment a lot faster. It's a much more productive area of your business to invest in, whether that's better performing inventory, it could be marketing, it could be something else so that you can increase your efficiency in the business. So don't neglect your overstock. That's a really big deal. I think it's slightly less exciting, slightly less sexy than the replenishment thing and not missing out on revenue, but it's so important. There's so much cash that you can really squeeze out of that overstock by identifying it and getting it out of there. So the store that I was running, by both plugging the holes of when we were out of stock and missing out on revenue and identifying so much overstock, we were able to improve our stock turn by 8x in a relatively short amount of time. So that means that every investment we're making in our inventory, we're turning it over. We're getting revenue out of it 8 times faster than we used to. So this is going from one extreme to the other. It started out really bad, and then we were able to hone that in and really scale up the business and get a lot more efficient in that sense. One other company that I've worked with, they were able to think about the cost value of their inventory. How much are they holding in their warehouse? And basically they were able to reduce that by $1.5 million US within 6 weeks. So that means they have $1.5 million now that's liquid that was not before. It was sitting on their warehouse shelves. So what they did is they said, okay, we're gonna order a lot more often and we're gonna order smaller amounts. They have a very trendy item, and so that way they can be very responsive to their customer demands. And then they're not buying too much of something that their customers are not going to want that's gonna sit on their warehouse shelves. So that really made a huge difference for their company in terms of the cash flow situation. And I think probably any merchant that's on this call worries about cash flow a lot. I know I did. And so this can be a really big deal, is really honing in, you know, how much are we carrying in our warehouse. So those are some things to think about when you're forecasting, you know, both in a spreadsheet, when you're thinking about looking at a software that can save you time, be more accurate, and sync with these other systems. So something like Inventory Planner will sync with, we have integrations with 30 different platforms, including Deere, including Xero. And so you can create a purchase order, you can sync it over to Deere automatically. So that's you know, one of those steps that might be happening manually right now, that you can just take the error out of that and save time. You can sync your purchase orders to 0 as well. So that's something that can just increase your efficiency, not spend time on those kind of time-intensive projects, and spend your efforts elsewhere in your business. So turn it back over to Wayne. All right.
Thanks so much, Jill. So we want to give you guys enough of an opportunity to ask questions. So if we could, we'll kick it off first. I'll ask the first one. So in the chat, please share with us what was most valuable to you. And as folks begin to get their questions also, we are using the chat manager to collect questions. So if you guys can please add one, what was most valuable to you, and then I also have Amph, our community manager, managing for us the chat so that he will be able to help us make sure that we're picking up all of the questions that are coming through. So I have one question, Jill. I'll maybe kick it off since it's front of mind to me. What are some strategies that you would recommend for reducing that overstock?
Oh, okay. I love talking about this. I love getting into this. So one of my favorite things to do is take a look at bundling. So I think that when we're thinking about overstock, we automatically go to, oh, I've got to cut the price. It may get to that. But let's try some things before we get to just like running a 50% off sale. So think about bundling. One, you could pair it with a hot selling item and try to make it an upsell. You could try to package it together so you're kitting things together, market it in a new way, you know, like a getting started kit or a weekend kit, or, you know, whatever might be applicable to your brand. So pairing it with some other items to just really kick things off and get things started for people. Then if you need to move it out, I think there's another thing you can do with bundling where you're selling a lot at a time. So think about your shipping cost of getting each one of those out of your warehouse. If you're sending one, you have, you know, let's say $5 in shipping for a pretty lightweight item. But if I'm moving 2 out, the increase in shipping is just marginally higher. It's not another $5. It's just slightly higher. So how many can we get out and keep our shipping cost per unit relatively low? And we're getting them out of there. We're moving them out fast. I think that there's some interesting things to do related to bundling. We did an experiment where we were offering too many bundle options. We had like 6 different bundle levels that we were offering people. And I think it was decision paralysis and people didn't buy. We changed it to 3 to line up with the package sizes and make our shipping easier. And we actually sold more at the highest level than we did before. We moved more bundles overall. So play around, do some A/B testing with your bundling on just like kitting those together and moving a lot more out the door. So there's a whole blog post, there's a whole probably presentation on moving out overstock, but I think bundles, there's some really fun experimentation that you can get into on getting that out of your warehouse.
Excellent. And I see a question here in the chat. I believe, Dhiren, you'd be best suited to answer this, but if Andrew, Jill, you have some insight after Dhiren takes a stab at it, we'll let you give it a go. But Dhiren, Steven Steinberg asked, it seems as though BigCommerce doesn't have as many native integrations with inventory management platforms as does Shopify. For someone who uses Xero and BigCommerce, any suggestions?
Yeah, look, that's a great question. And I saw that pop up and I was, I think there's 2 ways to answer this question. Number one is, what does integration mean? I think a lot of us business owners, we get tied up with the idea of integrating everything. And especially in today's world, day and age, we want to integrate everything. I think the key here is, if BigCommerce is working as a platform for you and you like the features and you like the usability, you like the interface, and it doesn't integrate with, say, for example, with Dia, or it doesn't integrate with Unleashed or Inventory Planner for that matter. The question is, what is that integration going to do for you? Is it actually going to help you save any time? Is it going to help you get anything done in return? Because the cost of switching over from BigCommerce to, say, something like Shopify, there's a cost there. There's a switching cost, an opportunity cost, and you want to be mindful of that. So while I think all of these systems are improving, they're adapting. And I think a big pattern to see here is all of them are going to be integrating with Zapier very soon, so that instead of then doing native integration, they just integrate with Zapier. I think BigCommerce is a great brand. I think Shopify is leading the pack in terms of e-commerce platforms. They do a phenomenal job. But again, there's not much you can do when BigCommerce doesn't offer it just yet. But I just want to throw that out as a side question to say, if you are planning on switching, just watch for the opportunity cost and the cost and the time it takes for you to switch, rather than doing that work manually if the two systems didn't integrate. So I hope that helps give you some food for thought.
If I could share and add on to that, we also often ask for sellers to understand why the integration is important to them. Is there a need for individual order details to all be processed through Xero, for instance? And for many businesses that are scaling and have thousands of orders, it's really not most beneficial for them to have that type of integration enabled, because at the end, what we're really looking to use Xero for is internal financial management reporting. And that reporting can be done by pulling key KPIs and details out of the inventory management solution and then putting them in either through a manual journal or other adjustment into the accounting system. So we use the accounting system for what it's built to do, provide financial reports. We use the inventory management solution in the way that it was built and designed to do for inventory, demand planning and forecasting, and for, identification of in-stock and out-of-stock items.
I have to agree. I might just share a couple of things from.
Absolutely.
Very. Obviously, I'm sharing from very dear's perspective. Connecting from any kind of e-commerce integration, e-commerce platform that we might not have a out-of-the-box plug-and-play integration with. I know we've actually been in conversation with BigCommerce and having some of those conversations to see what that integration with them would look like. But that might be some time away. And like as Dhiren said, they're a great brand, and there definitely will be some integrations in the future. But how soon, I can't comment on that. But as it was mentioned, there's things like Zapier. We do have an API as well that you can run a quick script that might be a lot more cost effective than shifting an entire platform, especially like if you already have your whole brand, everything set up around on BigCommerce. So that might be a little thing. So everything can then get pulled into Dia. If you don't have like a plug and play integration, there's definitely different ways to connect those channels up. And as Wayne said, those orders can come into Dia for the fulfillment. So you can just push in enough information to be able to fulfill those orders, and then Dia can consolidate that and then send it over as one big invoice or journal at end of the day to Xero. So in Xero, you got nice and clean financials without it getting too messy or meeting any Xero limitations in terms of number of transactions per month. So there's definitely different ways to manage it. Some like Dhiren will be excellent. So I definitely recommend speaking to a consultant who works really closely with inventory businesses like Dhiren.
Excellent. So we have a question now in the chat from Zia. When figuring out how well inventory apps integrate with Shopify and Xero, what questions do I need to ask? What bottlenecks might I want to look for?
Sorry, Dhiren, this is probably best for you. I think one thing specific to Shopify in particular, I think Xero does this well, BigCommerce communities as a slightly lesser extent, but the Shopify community is super active, like on Facebook. You can find Facebook groups and different things like that, different forums, and you can talk to people who have tried out different systems. You can hear from them like what worked, what didn't. And I think the Shopify community is particularly active and large. So you can find out a lot of information from there. So sorry, Dhiren, kick it off.
No, a great point. I think there's so much value in user-based community forums that there's so many questions that you get answered to right away. So I think that's a great point. I just want to add that one of the questions that I often get asked, and I ask vendors, is when you're integrating with a particular system, how strong is that integration? What are some things that cannot be done through this integration? So, you'll always hear about, oh, this can be done and this can be done. But a good question to ask is, what cannot be done. So for example, the integration between Shopify and Vend, which is a POS system, is phenomenal. It's been years in the making, and it's very, very robust. But for example, you can't sync promotions between Vend and Shopify just because they're not designed that way. You can't sync loyalty points between the two platforms. So I think the key question to ask is, what can this integration not do, and what should I be aware of and things that I have to do manually when I'm integrating? I think that's a very big question that's standing out for me at this point. Anybody else can feel free to add.
What I'd like to do is I'd like to make sure before we run to the top of the hour, we will continue to address the questions that are in the chat manager, but I do want to share some free bonus gifts that we have from ourselves and also our panelists. We have a landing page, bninjas.com/panel gifts for those of you interested. We have first up 14-day free trial of Deer Systems. We have 14-day free trial of Inventory Planner. We also have Cloudscape's PDF guide, 4 things to do before you start any free software trial. So maybe you want to go to Dhiren's free offer first, and then you'll go ahead and follow up and take advantage of the free trials from both Jill and Andrew. So let me also share, we have our recently published, and as contributors, thank you, all of you, for your insights into our e-commerce recession impact report. So please, we have a link to that report on this landing page as well. And we'd like to offer a Get Cash Confident consultation. So schedule, utilizing this link, also a free Know Your Numbers audit call with me. So I will go back to the chat. We will make sure that we honor and address the questions that are in the chat manager. So question from Sam Shackleton: what are best practices for merchants who do a high percentage of revenue on Amazon FBA, where we have to routinely replenish FBA inventory, as well as replenish stock at our 3PLs for excess stock and to fulfill other sales channels?
I can jump in on this one to start. So typically what I see with this setup, where you have your own warehouse as well as you're selling through FBA, typically you'll place one purchase order with your supplier to cover the demand for both locations. So both your own online sales and your Amazon sales. You'll have that shipped to your own warehouse, and then you might send several smaller shipments over to Amazon. At least in the US, I saw an announcement within the last 24 hours or so that Amazon is placing some limits so that you're only sending in 3 months worth of inventory. You can replenish if you sell out, but just be aware of that. But they're waiving fees to move overstock out of Amazon. So I'm not sure if this applies in other Amazon regions or countries, but I did see that for the US. So that's a unique opportunity to move overstock out of Amazon for limited time only, so get it out of there. But I do see that workflow in general is ship everything to your own warehouse, then send smaller shipments to Amazon, just to be aware of those warehouse fees that they impose.
Excellent. Well, we have 2 more minutes. I will use that time. If there are questions, please pose them in the chat. We will reach back to you with a response. But I do want to share with everybody our upcoming event, Financial Reporting for Agency Owners. Looking to get on top of your financial reporting, please join us on July 22nd at 9 a.m. Sydney time, or Tuesday afternoon, 4 p.m. Mountain Standard, for insights from Michael Wark covering this topic for you. Thank you to all of our panelists for joining. Again, thank you for your contributions in our recent e-commerce recession impact study. And thank you for everyone that had joined us today. Again, if you do have questions, I will leave the chat open for a little bit of time for you to post them in there. But I do want to say good evening, good morning, good day to everyone that has joined. Thank you so much. I've had a great time here.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Ciao.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys. Thanks so much. If there are questions that come through that are particular in nature to one of your strengths, I'll make sure that they get positioned over to you.